No, I went to Alberto Ibargüen. So he went to Wesleyan, and so I had met him in 2000 through this guy who was 2 years older than me, who worked at the Council on Foreign Relations after he graduated, and met Alberto through that. And he told me, he's like, oh, you live in South Florida, like when you're on Christmas break, you should write this guy. He's the publisher of the Miami Herald. He'll probably hang out with you because you went to Wesleyan. I was like, okay, so I did. I emailed him at like 3:30 in the morning, and he emailed me back at 3:35 and was like, yeah, come on by on Saturday, you know. I was like, okay. And I ended up hanging out in his office in the old Herald building for like 3 hours. And then kind of kept in touch with him on and off for years, and I hadn't seen him for, man, it was probably 3 or 4 years at least, when we were out writing poems one night at Art Walk in Wynwood, out in front of Gallery Diet, and Alberto walked by with his wife Susanna, and Susanna saw me and said to Alberto, like, isn't that Scott? You know, like, don't you know him? And so, you know, he came up to me just in typical Alberto fashion, and he just goes, what the fuck are you doing? and I was like, oh, I'm writing poems on the street for money, you know, which obviously is exactly the kind of response that he likes, you know, something completely absurd, you know, you're just out in the world making art, you know, for no reason. And so he's like, oh, let's have breakfast. And so I knew at that, you know, going to breakfast with him was a big deal. So I came with an idea for, you know, like, hey, give me, you know, I think I asked for like $3,000 to like bring some poets down, which, you know, in his world is like, it's under the table somewhere. So they ended up giving me, I think, 10 over 2 years, because I think it was actually Dennis Scholl who was like, give him a little more, like, see what he can do, you know. So they gave me $10,000 over 2 years to bring poets to Miami, and as I said before, you know, I brought like, I think almost like between 15 and 18 people with that money, and yeah, and through that experience, like, really enjoyed being in that role and making things happen and putting on events. And so at the advice of Tom Healy, who I'd met around the same time, like through a different set of circumstances, and who, you know, kind of, I think, also mentored me in various ways, he was like, you should ask for something bigger. You know, you should go back to them with like a bigger idea. And so that's when we pitched Oh Miami, and that was 2010. And so then we did the first festival in 2011, and just been trying to keep doing it ever since. And so I never really set out to start an organization or run a nonprofit, and something I had no training in, had no idea what I was getting into. Never thought I would be involved in a 501c3, or nor did I know what those combination of letters and numbers meant. And to some degree still don't know what they mean. But yeah, it's been an amazing experience, and it's changed me as a poet for sure. I mean, you know, I think having those experiences of putting poems out into the public and seeing how people react to them and finding different ways for people to interact with them, it just keeps like reinforcing this idea that people have connections to this genre. They care about it in ways that we can't really anticipate until we get out there. And it really, I think, changed me from a bad poet to a better poet.